pleasure to introduce the next section to the one, and today's facilitators are Sister Prity Bhat and Brother Ted Henry. We have all heard Ted Henry a couple of times already. Mr. Ted Henry has been a television journalist for more than 40 years.
Interviews across the world with holy people in a series called Soul Journeys. Many of these interviews are with the followers of Sri Satya Sai Baba who have compelling personal stories to share. Jody and Ted began Soul Jones in 1997. Since its start, Soul Jones has recorded more than 150 hours of half-hour-long video interviews. Prity Bhat was born and raised in Kolkata, India, and came to the United States as a teenager. She earned a bachelor's and master's degree in computer science from NJIT. She took an early retirement after 30 years of service in the telecom industry. Although Prity's parents were ardent devotees of her dear Bhagwan, Prity did not come into Sai's fold until her two children started attending SSC at New Brunswick, New Jersey. SSC's impact on her two sons brought her close to Swami's teachings and then into Sai's fold. Prity had taught SSC for several years before she was blessed to serve as the Mid-Atlantic region's education coordinator and then president. Currently, she is serving as the National Devotion Coordinator. We are very glad to have Ted and Prity today as part of our next workshop. It is only one. So, as we will be answering and discussing a lot about the saying which Baba said, we have built a mansion. In this mansion, we have one room for bath, one for cooking, another for dining, and yet another for living. What is it responsible for this division? Is it the walls in between? If you remove the walls, the mansion becomes one again. Thank you for taking time today.
I think we're going to begin with a prayer. Oops, it doesn't show up there. Because I'd like you to read with me, if you could.
1 minute.
And if it's not possible, I can just. Yeah, I want them to be able to see it too. Okay, it's over there. I'll tell you what, we'll wait another 20 seconds or so. I'll just read it to you and you can see it on the other screen. I think maybe he's got it, I must zoom in. Okay, so you can't fix it right now, right? That's okay, I can read it.
We can move it there.
Yeah. So the prayer is, we, your children of the world, are praying together as one. We, your embodiments of love, are thinking of you as one. Thank you. We whose hearts in which you dwell are pining for you as one. We have all come together now, Lord, to offer our pure love to you as one. Thank you.
Sairam, and welcome to this workshop. So, before we get really into the workshop, we would like to ask you a question. And the question is, what does it mean to be one? Any thoughts? Yeah.
Attention and grasp to the heart without any distraction.
Say that one more time, please.
Attention and grasp to the heart without any distractions in the mind.
Great. Other thoughts? Yes, from the back, Becky. Use the microphone, please.
To share another's joy and to feel another's pain.
Excellent.
Anybody else?
Right behind you, Ted, behind you first.
There you go. Hold on 1 second.
Yes.
Okay.
To basically think that we all are one as divine, and everyone is the same, and look at everyone as a part of ourselves and relate to each one of us.
Excellent. Wow, beautiful answers. Any other thoughts on what does it mean to be one? Yeah, front. Okay.
We are all spark of the divine, so we need to spark. So collectively, before we are born, we are part of the spark. And then when we are born, we are individual spark. After we pass away, we go back to the same spark. So because of our problems and vicissitudes in life, it gets disconnected. So if we can conflict, Swami says, CIA, constant integrated awareness. If we can think of that, then we'll always be one with him and we say everything is one.
Sweet.
I
Back there, yes.
just want to repeat what we sing every week, is that God is love and love is God and God and man are one.
Beautiful.
One more question. Over here in front of you.
Back.
Yes.
Yeah, since one has written the capital O, so I think how do you see God and you as one? We don't realize we should. It means you don't see God as being something different from you.
Very good. Nice observation. If I can get one of the ladies here.
Being aware that we are all part of the divine self. When Swami said that I have divided myself from myself to enjoy myself, if we value Swami's words, we believe that we are all part of that same divine self.
Excellent. Beautiful.
Back there in the back, then we'll come to you, sir.
One second. Yes.
To be one to others as you would like others to be one to you.
Excellent. Yeah.
One is I, one is Swami. So I'm not alone. All in one.
Okay. Wow.
I think it's more than just human beings, in my opinion. I think it's being a part of nature and just being, you're also one in the nature. That's it. I think we don't want to separate from nature.
Wow, so now we are expanding ourselves from divine to humans to the nature and environment around us.
Yeah. To see everyone, the Baba's soul in a man, woman, in a tree, animals. Everywhere, only one, that's Bhat.
Wow. Okay, wow, these are some beautiful answers.
There's one more.
Take one more before we, okay, go ahead.
On a daily basis, we have a body, mind, and spirit. And we have to align the spirit with our mind and the body. And once we align that, we need to align with Baba. Once we align with Baba, then we are all one. And then we have to see everyone who is around us, Baba's nature, all these Brahman, what we call all these different planets, they're all one. They are created by Baba. So when we look into that, body, mind, spirit, and Baba, all one. Thank you.
Oh, lovely. Okay, so Ted, I get to ask you a question for a change.
Sure.
What does it mean to be one, in your opinion?
Well, remember the story I had about the Gemological Institute when they said, I can tell you what it's not, I can't tell you what it is. I'm going to use that as a metaphor to give you my answer, Prity, because I agree with every answer I heard, and those are all my views as well. But I have to ask myself the question, am I thinking of this from an intellectual understanding or from an understanding of experiencing this? And so far I don't have a whole lot of experience in these comments, although I agree with all of them. So the task for me, and maybe others, is to work towards getting that experience of one. You mean, I got this consciousness telling me that I'm part of the oneness, but I see a multitude of people, 7.5 billion people in the world. How can they all be part of the one if I'm the one? It's difficult intellectually to wrap your arms around it. It's 1,000 times more difficult to wrap your arms around it if you don't know it from experience. And I think, you know, I'm a one-trick pony. I have one topic that I talk about. The people in this crowd who are there, know, call them awakened, call them self-realized, they know from experience the oneness. So we're all, unless you're there, unless some of you in this group, I'm not, some of your group is already there, we're all in training to get it at both an intellectual and as well as an experiential point.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. And for me personally, I sort of agree with you and all the answers that we received that it's like Neti, you cannot define it. It's beyond any description. What does it mean to be one? But I'm going to bring it down a little bit to something that that we have been pondering over for a year and a half, and it's all about expanding our hearts. How do we expand our hearts and how do we transform ourselves to see everyone as one? So that let's expand our hearts, let's include everyone to be a part of what it is. And if I may take 1 minute to talk about that initiative, Ted, it's called Cultural Inclusion and Expansion. And this initiative, first of all, before we even talk about that, let's say what culture is. And I'll give you the definition that Bhagwan has provided to us about what culture is. He says, culture, typically when we think of culture, we think of the social norms or languages or practices that we have within our own lives. He gives a beautiful definition of culture, and he says culture is the process of refinement. So it's our refinement, it's how we are refining ourselves to be the spiritual beings that we truly are. And he gives an example of rice. When rice is harvested, it's beaten to get the paddy off of it. And that's when the rice is edible for us. And so that's refinement. Rice has gone through refinement. And similarly, we are going through refinement by being part of this organization and talking about what is it that we are going to get rid of. What is the husk that's around us? And these are the husks that gets in the way of being that one that we all truly are. So this initiative was started in January, February of last year at the National Council meeting. At the request of many regional presidents, they requested the National Council to take this initiative and to provide us with something that we could take back to our centers. And so a group of several individuals from around the country worked on this initiative for good 8 to 10 months before it was even shared with the regional presidents. And the goal of this initiative was to raise awareness about Satya Sai's message of universal love. And what does that mean to each one of us? Also about practicing what is truly reflected in the local customs and traditions, and make our centers welcoming to all. So these were the basic goals that we sort of worked off of. And what we did as a team was to find what this meant to each one of us. And then we did a deep dive in all the discourses that Swami has given to see what is his answer to it. And we came up with beautiful quotes that talked about his universality, that talks about his love, how everyone is same, how everybody is one. We are all from that one seed, if I may say, that we have just all taken different shapes and forms. So that's what this initiative is all about. I know Doug in this region had a call with anybody, I think everybody was invited to that call to find out more about this initiative. And this workshop is based off of that initiative, and we kind of want to try and meet these goals that were laid out by the national team that worked on this cultural inclusion and expansion. So here, I just want to clarify, expansion is not about increasing number of members. It's about expansion of our own heart. So you may look at it as expansion by inclusion. How do we expand our hearts so that we can include each and every one, be this beautiful teachings, this universal love that we all know and that we are so happy to be a part of. How do we share that with our friends and family and neighbors in our communities? So that's
Can I add a quick comment to that?
Of course.
You just said something that's wonderful, because you told me about this as we were preparing for this. It's what I needed to hear. Expansion isn't, I should say, necessarily about expansion in numbers. That should be not the top priority. I do think it comes along with it, though, as we learn to expand ourselves. I mean, how I look around and I see the people, how they've treated me, complete strangers. They didn't even know I'm going to be part of the program, or if I'm part of the staff here, you know, or a speaker. They all treated me with uniform love. That is a magnet. That attracts me to be one of their numbers. So it does very much expand numbers too. It's just not the goal of what this program is. As we find that capacity in ourselves, real quickly, when I first was introduced to the internet, because I had to, it was my job, and social media came alive, I had to, it was my job, I learned chat rooms. Who remembers chat rooms 15, 20 years ago? And people would write comments to a theme, and other people would comment on your comment. You had no idea if they lived in your city, if they lived in your country, if they lived in your side of the world, if their skin was your color, their religion was yours. You just saw their expression. And everybody was one in that respect. There's not a day that goes by in my life, being born and raised in this country, where I don't walk down the street, where I walk into a store, where I go to a gathering, where I see people who are African Americans for whom I don't try to engage in conversation. Partly it's out of guilt for the way I've been biased towards them culturally. And partly it's out of my desire to do something that's uplifting. I don't know how it's received. I don't care necessarily. I feel this duty, but I know that that goes for all of us here. There's somebody who doesn't like me just because I'm a male, tall, and white. You know, who knows why? And I understand all the conditioning that goes into each of us, and we have to learn to overcome that in ourselves first, and that's when we become magnets to help the expansion take place numerically as well as the expansion of who we are.
Individually, absolutely. So to continue with this workshop, what we are going to do is request that you form groups of 5 amongst yourself. Where you are seated, you can turn your chair, just form a quick circle somewhere, anywhere where you are seated. So please, if you can reconfigure yourselves in groups of 5.
We're going to try to shoot for 5. If there's just 4 of you left over, or one group is 6, we'll let it slide.
Just, yeah.
But we want you to talk among yourselves. Just so we don't have any groups of 1. So in groups of 3, 4, 5, or 6, that'll be fine. Anything bigger than that might take too much time.
Okay, and we have some notepad and pens, because one of you will become the moderator for the group. The helpers here are going to pass papers and pens. And so select who will be the moderator for this group.
And we decided yesterday, Prity, that the moderator then becomes the spokesperson?
Yeah, and then the moderator will be the spokesperson for the group after we're done with this exercise.
So the moderator, please listen up, the moderator for each group, the moderator for each group is to also be the person who's the spokesperson for each group. So the moderator is a little bit off the hook, because they're going to be busy knocking down not every word, not every point. Use your discretion, use your judgment for the best points you hear your friends in the group making, so that then when you call upon, you, the moderator, will stand up and recite in your judgment the best points that can contribute to our discussion.
Excellent, yes. And that's being asked. If the person does not have anything to share, they can just pass. But in the next round, they may want to contribute based on what somebody else may have said. So we're going to do this in a study circle style. You can go around multiple times if necessary.
I want to add a quick point to that.
Go ahead.
Many of you, maybe most of you, are not familiar with study circles. Do you have a question?
Yeah, either moderator one and then the spokesperson one or just moderator?
Moderator, spokesperson, the secretary is one, same person. So you're not the spokesperson for your group. What I wanted to say is, I know many of you are not familiar with study circles. Bhat devised it. You can't go against it. I didn't like it at first because I'm a natural talker. You can't put a plug in my mouth, although people try. The joy of this, the gift of this, is not only does everybody have a chance to talk, the group is small, it's not so intimidating, your shyness, fear factor goes way down, and if you want to pass the first time around, you can. But then whoever starts the discussion, again, before the next person speaks, when you're all done, you go back around, and hopefully the one who's shy will chime in with a response, with a point of view. We want to hear from all of you.
Yes. So with that, you're going to have 20 minutes. We have 3 questions for you that you are going to ponder as a group. And these are the 3 questions. Why is diversity important for an organization? What would your science center look like in 25 years? Describe based on demographics, devotional programs, and other activities. And would your children and grandchildren, as young adults, be active in the science center? So these are the 3 questions that you're going to be pondering and discussing. We're going to give you 20 minutes. The clock starts now. Go ahead.
And I'll remind you as you get started, I've been in groups like this forever. Sometimes it's easy to get hung up on one point. Just flesh it out real good. You won't be held to having answers for all 3 points. It would be ideal, but if you get hung up on question number 2, write it the way, put it the best way you can. Okay.
Thank you.
This is Kudumbaji's old camera. This is Sony. That one is and this is yeah. Most of the latest cameras they only come with they don't put hard drives because hard drives fail. Some of them have 2 slots. You can copy and record same time. If you want to give it to somebody, immediately it's dual recording. Take the card out and give it exactly what it is. And that is the live stream translator. Live streaming. So it comes the whole package. You just give your input. Yeah. It's a platform. You just go to the regional website and then you just play it. So the email went out from Doug Down from it's a hard one. And you have to buy the Wi-Fi card. This works on the wireless signal just like your cell phone. For AT&T you can buy it from the Sprint. It's about, they charge you by data, amount of data you send. No, everything is in here. Right. And then you buy the card that gives you data for 10, 15 gig of total for the 3-day retreat. So that you pay about $150. This thing itself is $3,000. This is used by Perfect Translator. 1 gig translator. Anywhere in the US, you can translate from anywhere. Because we had issues, electricity, we had issues with the Wi-Fi and signal last 3 years, we couldn't translate. While using the local the Kudumbaji got tired and went and bought this anyway. You can be in the middle of a field. They use it for real-time broadcasting. We have a temple in Richmond. Yeah. So Teradek transmitter. And once you buy it, then you just buy the data from AT&T and do it for 3 days. No, it comes in zone. This one is probably single, yeah. I know his camera does, mine does too. Most of the cameras and to get good audio, you get a direct feed from the sound system. Yeah, so what it is sound system, Abhinav. Bring 2 of the channels and it converts it and gives it to you in a one format that this will take. Yeah, it converts it into this format. It's a converter. It's multi-beach tech. Or you can get
5 more minutes.
Like this.
5 more minutes.
Depends on the audio system. But that's not wide. That's really wide. No, wireless is almost the preferred one. Then you get full audio without I always email Kudumbaji to tell you all about videography with the expert. Beach tech. Channel right Then once parts of the board recorded, you have to edit it. Editing is professionals, they do one more step ahead. They'll have multiple cameras. Everything will feed, all HDMI will feed into a control box. That's next to Apple software. They edit right there based on. So audio will be common for all of them. And then video they switch real time. And then they switch one guy to everything like this. He was taking a light access. Each camera will give you different views. So the other one will look like a real camera. Here we take it individually, then put them by the edit. Yeah, he has all the elements.
As you begin to wrap up, the person who's going to be the spokesperson, get your thoughts in order, look at your notes, and ferret out a couple of thoughts that you'd like to share. Of course, these guys in the corner are the last two. We're wrapping up. Get your thoughts in order, Jim. Okay, we're calling you first.
Okay, so the timer just buzzed, which means our time is up. So now, this is the time when we get to hear wonderful answers to the 3 questions from each of the groups. We'll alternate between men and women. We have helpers who are going to bring a microphone to your group.
One quick statement right here, and that is, it's a question. I went around and took video of all the different little discussion groups, and I actually took some audio of you talking. It was uniformly superb. It was uniformly excellent. And I'm going to put it up with your permission as an individual soldier's video about this very important workshop and the value of study circle. If anybody has an objection, now is the time to let me know, and I'll exclude you from video. If nobody has any objections, you're going to be serving humanity, not just Baba devotees, but everyone who sees this, but the value of why we study unity and why we have study circles. So I don't see anybody raising their hands. Thank you.
Okay. Yes. So let's begin right here. We'll alternate between sisters and brothers groups. So first group here.
Diversity is important because it emphasizes on inclusion versus exclusion. Diversity is the reality of life, so any entity or organization or group is best represented by this reality of life. And it allows for expansion of heart with inner purification, so that we will accept all alike without any distinction. And it helps develop tolerance, mutual respect of differences, understanding of differences, and emphasize the core unifying principle underlying the variety in expression. So, in 25 years, what would Sai Center look like based on demographics and programs and activities? It would appear as a diverse, all-inclusive group that practices a common set of teachings. That comes together to practice a common set of teachings and express based on love. Socialization and sharing the warmth of love amongst one another will help them to be like one big family. One local family sharing more redundant and sharing love. The third question, what would your children and grandchildren provide? So yes, everybody in the group sees their children and grandchildren more active in the group over time.
Very nice. Very good. Thank you. We'll turn over to a group over there. Okay, let's do that. And I'm going to give you a minute and 30 seconds because we want to get to all the groups. So please keep your responses very crisp.
That is a lifetime for me as permission to talk in front of my wife.
She's giving you a minute.
Minute and a half. That's the most I've been bored. So why is diversity important for an organization? I think one of the things we talked about, we did have diversity meetings here, to get different points of views and to expand, to grow. But I think if you really think about it, diversity is natural. It is not something we create. It needs to be something we accept and embrace. Because wherever you see, be it the animals, be it the sea, the nature, the humans, diversity is present in thoughts, words, and deeds, and we have to embrace that. And it is good for us to embrace it because then it allows us to expand, to grow, and understand the universe the way it was created. So that's why diversity is important. It is all about expanding, growth, and it is the truth. How will the center look in 25 years? One of the simple questions was a lot older and stronger. The youth today, and it is my privilege to be working with the YAs, it is the youth today that will take over the way the centers will run, the way we will apply Swami's message. Therefore, they will not worry about how the center looks, but they will more focus on how the center centers on Swami's message.
15 seconds to wrap it up.
And the last one, very simple, if not now, when? If not you, who? If we take care of doing what Swami is telling us today, we will not have to worry about our children basically following the path, so we need to be the role models. We did not know if our children would do it or not, but it was more about us doing it right now. Simon.
Thank you, that was great. Another group from the ladies. Yes, All right, so another, you have 1 minute and 30 seconds. Go.
Okay, first question, why is diversity important for an organization? It helps to gain a different perspective and it helps to see yourself in others. Inclusiveness of every aspect of all cultures and inclusiveness in who we are. Encourages inclusiveness of all religions to grow our organization, to feel the unity and love amongst each other, which leads to broad-mindedness, erasing prejudices of the conditioned mind. Second question, what would your society look like in 25 years? A lot of diversity and youth involvement. Envision a large center with diversity and expression of love. A new generation of SSC teachers who are able to connect the younger generation to relate to Swami's teachings according to the times. To have our own physical center and be able to leverage it according to our own will based on Swami's guidelines. Hopefully there will be oneness within the Sai organization and there will be expansion culminating in the entire world being one Sai center. Would your children and grandchildren, as young adults, be active in the Sai Center? Yes, that is always the hope, and pray for Swami's will for it to happen. Hope that they will continue as active members of the Sai organization wherever they are in the world.
So that was great. All the time, so great job there. Okay, we'll go over to, they have the microphone back there. Okay, we'll go there.
With our group, first of all, the privilege of the wonderful group, everybody participated very greatly. Why is diversity important to an organization? Well, as everyone has already said, more ideas represented with more perspectives. And an opportunity to unify, of course, age groups as well as using technology. And really, the idea that some people, we kind of moved just from an organization to even dealing with people who have met Swami and some who have never met Swami and how that has impacted. And then the question came up, without diversity, how do we measure spiritual growth? And the more we struggle, the more we learn. Close perspectives without diversity, the best way of making the world smaller and more improvement is through having diversity. Question number 2 was, what would your Sai Center look like in 25 years described based on the demographics, devotional program, and other activities? When we talk about the importance of seva, that it increases universal empathy, and it helps to develop character. And then one person brought up the idea that there were the Syrian disciples that were originally followers of Jesus, and they practiced yoga and they did a lot of other things that were unifying rather than some of the organizing the religions that brought about separating people from that. And the idea that we say, humble say, without advertisement, we increase concern, and the values, the questionable values persist, so the values will be increased by people doing sales.
15 seconds to go.
Okay, last one, will the children be involved? We believe strongly yes. We think that there is an increased depth of thinking. We think that through social media and technology, the word is spreading, and that parenting is very important, and if we live and do what we say we do, then the children learn by that example.
Thank you. Okay, let's go on that side. Okay, go ahead. So you don't have to repeat the question, I think we all know, so just say question 1 and response 1 would save time. Okay,
question 1, maybe I don't have to repeat the answers also because they're all, we must be all on the same wavelength because all the answers are very similar. So for the first question, we said that we have to be open to other people, to expand the organization, to make people, organization part of the community so that other people from outside would feel like they're not excluded, but they're included in their activities, and they feel like they're welcome to join the organization. Also, we said that diversity would bring different talents the second question, we said that we rely on farming to develop our centers. And of course, we would hope that it would be more diverse, the organization would be more diverse, but maybe more inclusive also, because especially in this country, the cultures are, this country is a melting point of a lot of different cultures, and our children who are growing up, they are not identifying that much with our cultural background. They are more identifying with what is here and now, which is more a melting point, or maybe someone put that sometimes it's more like a salad, but we want to make it more like a melting point. So that's about that.
15 seconds to wrap up.
Okay, number 3. We want to be role models for our children, and so if we are committed to our centers and to the organization, then our children will be also. And we also said it's like also following Swami's teachings, even in the food or like watching TV, the lifestyle, the children will follow what we do.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So we have the last group of, okay, in the back there. All right, go ahead. Yes, sir.
So first, why is diversity important for organization? Organization is for people by nature. So people is the core to an organization. And so people are by nature diverse. They come from different cultures, different religions, castes, genders, so on. So there's no organization unless you have people all inclusive. So diversity is key for an organization. One of the segments of basically talk about unity, diversity. And then see all as one. And one of the topic came was variety is food for the soul. So we are, colors of the rainbow, right? All come together and as one organization. So another sentiment was that when we start off as a family, within a family, or close to each other, but we think about when we start thinking about the community, other people, that's why we start thinking about diversity and respect and organization becomes more solid, and the roles. So, with the second question, I would just like to look in 25 years, definitely the youth leading organization and more service activities, more the devotional session, or more of English songs and so on, and let's see, more emphasis on human values. So we keep 20 years to expect our organization more diverse as well.
15 seconds more.
And children, well, yeah, the same was supposed to be hope, but the seed has been planted in our children and grandchildren, so we hope is that, or we believe that we'll all be active decisive going on.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, do we have another lady on the ladies' side? Okay.
Hi, our spokesperson had to leave, so we're going to share this. Diversity important for an organization. Bhat has said that study circle is like the facets of a diamond. And in our study circle, we read something from Bhat, go around the room, people can pass or say something. And the beauty is that it helps us understand the passage better, might give us different viewpoints, and have us think about something that could be very helpful for us. It was also discussed about how in centers it's important to have audience in different languages so people would feel welcome. I'm going to go through Sai Center in 25 years. We don't know because we don't know the future. But it will be up to Baba who he brings to the centers. And the third one, decide on the future. We want to empower the young adults as much as we can to feel good about the center and continue. And I'm going to share this. You did it another time. Excellent. Thank you. All right, we have a group up here. All right, I'm going to reset. All right, go ahead.
Okay. God created everyone different, but all are one. That's example of diversity for God organization, so we can follow the same. Goal of oneness towards the common goal. That's one. And the internal growth is very important to include the external force. Comfort zone that we are in, it does not grow. It needs diversity. Global implementation of diversity is the right way. Open mind, inclusion, own views. There's one example we cover here. Women is the one example selected as the one which includes the diversity. Different people, different opinion, different expression, expansion, and could be biased opinion. We should include all together. Acceptance of different perspective is very important. My life is my message, expansion is my life is Baba's message. Question comes, if not I or us, who? If not now, when? Let's begin. Thank you.
Sorry, that's question number one. We want to practice diversity here as well. So question number two. So based on 25 years from now, if we go with our current trend of our activities, 25 years will look a lot similar like what it is today. And somebody in our group said that 25 years ago it looked the same exactly without any inclusion of diversity. So we need to have changed our, in the budgets that we sing, the service activities or anything, it's more centered towards an Indian origin and a Hindu culture centric. I think if you want to include in newcomers, we have to accept the other points of view and expand. That's number two, the way I interpret. So it's going to look the same if you don't change. Question number three, based on what I said, so we just did a quick vote. 3 of us said, yes, we will include our children and grandchildren. 2 of us said, probably not. So what it means is that the children are growing in a different culture, different environment, and if we apply our traditional viewpoint from India and the Hindu culture, we may not see the participation. And also we need to include YAs and have their perspective and see what they want, which activities, service activities, how do we change it? So we need to include them and to grow. Otherwise we'll be in the same old setup.
Very good responses, thank you. All right, we have a group, 2 more groups, okay, back there, go ahead.
Sarah, make it short, just cover the points that probably were not covered in other groups. We were a diversified group geographically from different centers, but diversification is important. As one of the speakers said yesterday, all 5 speakers are different and they're not the same. So diversity is important, it's a natural process, but it's important because we need to be more inclusive for anybody who comes to the center. So diversity is something that's it's an integral part of any organization to be more inclusive, and more diversity will give you more values, more ideas, and be inclusive of all the faith. So we want to project the SOI organization not per se as a faith-based organization, it's more a value-based organization, so we can include everybody from all faith will attract, and not it's just not a cultural-oriented organization. And the second one was how we want to look in 25 years. We heard from the different centers that there are more people. In 3 years, the center in Jersey City has grown from like 4 to 25 people. So there are more people coming, and I think the way to grow is to have more SSC-oriented activities, because if children are there, then the parents automatically come. So, more SSC, and even in the Jersey City, I mentioned that there are people who are not really SOI devotees, but they then bring the children because of the values that are being taught.
15 more seconds.
And the third one was how are your children and YAC, the main point that was there, which was mentioned, that our group thought was to teach them to give back to the community. So even if the kids go to some other part, you just need to teach them to reach out to a center and give back to the community. And hoping that's how they can, become a part of the YA as a whole side organization. Thank you, Sana.
Thank you. I guess we have exhausted groups on the brother's side here. We have one last group there. That's it. Go ahead.
I know everybody has expressed all the views already, which we have mostly covered, but I'll try to point out a few points, very important points for the second and third question we have here. First question briefly, the diversity is very important because the world is full of diversion. And if we have the intention to expand, we definitely need to have a diversity and inclusion to grow the organization. Going to the second point, I would like to first quote an example of one of our Sai sisters from our group, whatever her experience is. When she heard about the Sai Center first time from some friend, when she came to the center, she doesn't felt welcome at all. Nobody paid attention towards her for the span of 40 minutes or whatever she was sitting there. That really needs to be changed. We need to be very welcoming and including for the thoughts of the other people, how we can get the people, how we can make them feel home. And another thing, I believe how my center will be in the next 25 years, very similar opinion to the brother who expressed right now. If we are going to go in the pace what we are going right now, I don't see much difference coming in the 25 years. We definitely need to think about from the perspective of the other people to bring them more in. We definitely need to make changes in the way our Sai organization, here especially in US, how it takes over. The third question coming to the will our children, grandchildren be in necessary activities. I believe in this parents play a crucial role in making our youth being interested into the activities and carry forward this mission. Both parents have to be very involved, active, and lay the foundation for the kids so that they know the values. Because I believe as first generation and second generation people here in the US, it's really important to carry forward that to our youth. So once it has gone into the hands of the youth, believe me, they have both the perspective of our culture and the culture over here. They can mix that and make our Sai organization an amazing place from the perspective of the US demographics.
Excellent. Thank you.
Did the same comment, like going on Swami's teachings. The Swami always says, respect everything, respect every culture, and let the above men vanish. And that way the respecting culture by, I believe in unity and diversity is very important. Not only in Sai organization, but look around the world. In every organization, equal opportunity employer, and every unit employs different cultures and different things, the same purpose for the unity. Once there is unity, the organization grows, the company grows, and that is based on Swami's teaching. I believe that respect to each faith is very important by celebrating the festivals and all the time communicating. And one more thing I would like to say, will the children and grandchildren participate? I'm sure I do have grandchildren. Some are like only 5-year-old is very devotional part of every life. But what I see around, I have been Seva coordinator for a long time. So what I see that everyone is being attracted by service. Even people who don't have anything to do with Sai organizations, in my work, every third Saturday I have a seva. They know that and they want to know where it is and how it is done. They have nothing to do with Baba, nothing to do with the names. So I see that that has they want only service center. I think that way you can expand the program and it will flourish. And I'm sure Swami's well, in 25 years, we are going to see a lot of changes. Everyone will come to know, and because Swami is nothing but love, love is attracted by the world. Science.
Very good. Thank you for those last final comments. So before we get into our closing part, I want to just kind of give you a quick update on some of the responses that we heard. In last September, there was YA leadership meet in St. Louis, and all the YA advisors got together and they asked the question, the discussion was, what is keeping our young adults away from the science centers? And to your surprise, the response was that the young adults today are finding that the science centers are very culturally oriented versus spiritually oriented. What Ella said, what this gentleman here said, we have to figure out what is it we are doing in our science centers that young adults are turning away from science centers. And yes, there has to be some conscious effort that has to be put in. We have to all think about our future generations and people who may not know anything about Sai Baba and how we could spread this. So it's been very reflective session here to hear so many different views and responses, some optimist and there are some who are being realistic. But I think this discussion is very much needed and I'm so happy that we were able to take part in this.
I'd like to add one comment.
Absolutely.
I always have a comment. They're not always good, but this is, first of all, I think I want to invite all of you to give yourselves a hearty round of applause for your great participation. And secondly, I'd like to make a quick, very informal poll. If you don't like the question, you don't have to answer. It's very informal. It's not a reflection in any way, shape, or form. For how many of you in this group, and this is a very august group, for how many of you is this what I would call, not just a workshop, but maybe your first study circle you've ever attended, and it's okay. It's okay. So I see 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hands, maybe 6 hands. And this, I think, is what I'm going to try to capture as the secondary purpose for doing the video, which I hope to air within 2 weeks. So I have to work hard on putting it all together. My first report back on Sojourns will be about this study circle because what you just said is so critically important, and I also believe that this is a living example of how study circles work effectively. These are excellent comments. The only thing I would add as a precaution, and it's not a reflection on anybody, but if there's any place that I've seen the need for strong leadership, it's in the person we choose to be. I've never been a study circle director. The effective moderator of a study circle that explains the purpose we're here, the rules, that we go around in a circle as Baba devised, the time limits, and to keep it going. That gets it away from me, I think, in my mind, becomes less of a cultural program and more of a spiritual growth program.
Excellent. So with those comments, we would like to close out by reading you a little story. And the story comes from this book titled Old Turtle. It's by Douglas Wood. And there we go.
And I'll begin, and I'll just say, it's one of the most powerful, deep stories in a child's book I've ever read. This should be a mandatory reading for all adults. Old Turtle by Douglas Wood. Once, long, long ago, yet somehow not so very long, when all the animals and rocks and winds and waters and trees and birds and fish and all the beings of the world could speak and understand one another,
there began an argument. It began softly at first, quiet as the first breeze that whispered. He's a wind who is never still. Quiet as the stone that answered. He's a great rock that never moves. Gentle as the mountain that rumbled. God is a snowy peak high above the clouds. And the fish in the ocean that answered. God is a swimmer in the dark, blue depths of the sea.
And continuing with this argument, no, said the star. God is twinkling and shining far, far away. No, replied the ant. God is a sound and a smell and a feeling who is very, very close. God, said the antelope, is a runner, swift and free, who loves to leap and race with the wind. She is a great tree, murmured the willow, a part of the world always growing and always giving. You are wrong, argued the island. God is separate and apart.
And the story continues. God is like the shining sun, far above all things, said the blue sky. No, he is a river who flows through the very heart of things, thundered the waterfall. She is a hunter, roared the lion. God is gentle, chirped the robin. He's powerful, growled the bear, and the argument grew louder and louder and louder until...
Stop! Stop! A new voice spoke. It rumbled loudly like thunder, and it whispered softly like butterfly sneezes. The voice seems to come from... Why, it seems to come from...
Old Turtle. Now, Old Turtle hardly ever said anything, and certainly never argued about things like God. But now, Old Turtle began to speak. God is indeed deep, she said to the fish in the sea, and much higher than high, she told the mountains. He is swift and free as the wind, and still and solid as a great rock, she said to the breezes and stones. She's the life to the world, Turtle said to the willow, always close by, yet beyond and furthest twinkling light. She told the ant and the star, God is gentle and powerful, above all things and within all things.
God is all that we dream of and all that we seek, said the old turtle, all that we come from and all that we can find. God is. Old Turtle had never said so much before. All the beings of the world were surprised and became very quiet. But Old Turtle had one more thing to say. There will soon be a new family of beings in the world, she said, and they will be strange and wonderful. They will be reminders of all that God is. They will come in many colors and shapes with different faces and different ways of speaking.
Their thoughts will soar to the stars, but their feet will walk the earth. They will possess many powers. They will be strong, yet tender. A message of love from God to the earth, and a prayer from the earth back to God. And the people came. But the people forgot. They forgot that they were a message of love and a prayer from the earth. And they began to argue about who knew God and who did not, and where God was and was not, and whether God was or was not. And often the people misused their powers and hurt one another or killed one another. And they hurt the earth. Until finally, even the forests began to die.
And the rivers and the oceans and the plants and the animals and the earth itself. Because the people could not remember who they were or where God was, until one day there came a voice, like the growling of thunder, but as soft as butterfly sneezes.
Please, stop. The voice seemed to come from the mountain who rumbled. Sometimes I see God swimming in the dark blue depths of the sea, and from the ocean who sighed, he's often among the snow-capped peaks reflecting the sun. From the stone who said, I sometimes feel her breath as she blows by, and from the breeze who whispered, I feel his still presence as I dance among the rocks. And the star said, God is very close. And the island said, his love touches everything. And after a long, lonesome and scary time, the people listened and began to hear and to see God in one another and in the beauty of all the earth. And the old turtle smiled.
And so did God.
Jai Sai Ram. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much for the wonderful workshop, Sister Prity and Brother Ted. It was amazing to see such a hands-on experience, 2-in-1, and telling us the meaning of diversity and inclusion, to very excellent points about including everyone, acceptance of everybody, making it more relevant for our next generation, and of course a story for us to think back. Thank you so much.
I don't keep the chairs as they were.
Keep it or take it?
Keep the chairs as they were. Yeah,
Can you help us put back the chairs, please?
No, as they were.
Leave it.
Keep it.
Please leave the chairs as